Hello everyone, my name is Rio and I'm the main author of this paper. My paper, The Influence of Taste and Price on Repurchase Decisions with Consumer Satisfaction as Intervening Variables. Case study to Sambal UP brand. As we know, today the development in culinary business in Indonesia has given rise to many new types of culinary business, especially in chili sauce or we call sambal in Bahasa. The large variety of brands, flavors, and types of chili sauce itself has a pretty good impact on the consumer community. The small business, the family business, or everyone that doing micro business. One of the brand is Samal UP. It has several types of chili products and additional menus. And the Samal UP itself, like the others brands, ca- it has consumers who are customers that also have their own reference to the Samal UP menu. Not a few customer become loyal customer and repurchase the Samal product. The purpose of this study was to determine the relationship and influence between taste, price, consumer satisfaction, and repurchase decision. We are using the research methods that we are using is one non-probability sampling, purposive sampling method with total sample 96 people, and we test using the t-test and r-square test, adjusted r adjusted r-square test, multiple linear regression, and we collect the data with the questionnaire survey, and um, we doing the test with the SPSS 26. So this is the conceptual framework. There are four variables: first, taste, price, satisfaction, and repurchase. So uh, we will test the relationship between taste and satisfaction, price and satisfaction, taste and repurchase, price and repurchase, and satisfaction to repurchase. So this is problem and research objective of this paper. 1. Does test affect consumer satisfaction? 2. Does price affect consumer satisfaction? 3. Does test affect repurchase decisions? 4. Does the price affect the repurchase decision? 5. Does customer satisfaction affect repurchase decision? So after we collect the data and we test using SPSS, this is the result of our study. This is the t-test and r-square test. First, the influence of test on consumer satisfaction. T-test for the test variable x1 with a t-count is 8.767, which is greater than t-table. So it's mean positive effect on consumer satisfaction variable y, and r-square value is 0.450, and it's mean 45% of x1 has a partial influence on the y. Next, the influence of price on consumer satisfaction. The t-test showed the value is 10.005, and it's mean positive effects on consumer satisfaction y, and r square value is 0.516, so it's mean 51.6% of x2 has a partial influence on the y. You can see the result on the table. Next, the influence of test and repurchase decision. The t-test value for the test or variable x1 show 9.393, which is greater than the t-table, so it's mean positive effect on the repurchase decision variable z. R square value is 0.484, so it means 48.4% of x1 has a partial influence on the z. Next, the influence of price and repurchase decision. The t-test showed 9.432, which is greater than t-table, So it's mean positive effect on repurchase decision, and R square value is 0.486, which mean 48.6% of X2 has a partial influence on the Z, as you can see in the table. And the last of the T and R square test, the influence of consumer satisfaction on repurchase decision. So the result is the t-test value for the customer satisfaction variable y with a t-count is 13.848, which is greater than t-table, and it's mean positive effect on the repurchase decision. And R square value is 0.671, which means 67.1% of y has a partial influence on the z. So we continue to multiple linear regression test, as you can see in the table, and the result is y is same with 2.856 plus 0.430x1 plus 0.424x2 plus e. So the constant value obtained is 2.86 at 2.856, which means that if x1 and x2 are omit or have a value of 0, then y is worth as 2.856. The regression coefficient of the x1 is 0.433, which means that if the x1 increase by one level, consumer satisfaction will increase by 0.433. The regression coefficient of the x2 is 424, which means that if the x2 increase by one level, consumer satisfaction will increase by 0.424. And adjusted R square value is 0.600. This shows that 60% of the taste and price variable have a simultaneous influence on the consumer satisfaction. So we continue to Z, which is the repurchase decision. So Z, the constant value obtained is 3.435, which means that if x1 and x2 are omit or have a value of 0, then Z is worth 3.435. The regression coefficient of the x1 is 0.480, which means that if the x1 increase by one level, consumer satisfaction will increase by 0.480. The regression coefficient of the x2 is 0.363, which means that if the x2 increase by one level, so the consumer satisfaction will have the same value. And adjusted R square value is 0.601. This shows that 60% of the taste and price variable have a simultaneous influence on the repurchase decision variable Z. And you can see in the table the result. So we continue to multiple linear regression tests between the price test, consumer satisfaction, and the repurchase decision. So the result is the constant value obtained is 1.951, which means that if x1, x2, and y, which is taste, price, and customer satisfaction, is omit or has a value of 0, then Z is worth with the same value. The regression coefficient of x1 is 0.255, which means that if x1 increase by one level, the repurchase decision will increase by the same value. The regression coefficient of x2 is 0.142, which means that if x2 increase by one level, then the repurchase decision will increase with the same value too. And the regression coefficient of y is 0.519, which means that if y increases by one level, the repurchase decision will increase by 0.519. So an adjusted R square value of the adjusted R square value is 0.715, and this indicates that 71.5% percent of X1, X2, and Y have a simultaneous influence on the Z. As you can see in the table, the results. And this is the conclusion to our study. 1. Test has a positive and significant effect on consumer satisfaction, with T count is greater than T table, and it contributes 45%. 2. Price has a positive and significant effect on consumer satisfaction, with T count is greater than T table, and contributes 51.6%. 3. Test has a positive and significant effect on repurchase decision, with T count greater than T table, and contributes 48.4%. Price has a positive and significant effect on repurchase decision, with T count greater than T table, and contributes 48.6%. Consumer satisfaction has a positive and significant effect on repurchase decision, with T count greater than T table, and contributes 67.1%. So from the result, we can conclude, we have a conclusion from the pointers above. It can be concluded that taste and price have a positive effect on consumer satisfaction, which then has a positive impact on repurchasing decision for some UP products. So that consumer satisfaction can be an intervening variable between taste and price with repurchasing decision. Therefore, the purpose of this research has been achieved. This is the last slide of our paper, and thank you. Have a great day ahead.